Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Michael Eisenberg and Robert Williams. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. How do you follow that? Anyone got any big plans for 2020? Everest, maybe? Geez, that's quite something, huh?
That was
quite something.
I've been to a lot of conferences, and that was a sensational presentation.
Lots of parallels there for us. Did he say after 9:35 is the death zone? Or maybe that's later this afternoon.
Usually after lunch.
Well, my privilege this morning to talk to Michael. My name is Robert Williams. I'm a partner at law firm Withers, and I'm head of our hotels and hospitality group in Asia Pacific. Help clients buy and sell resorts, and then stand in the middle between owners and operators. So we cross swords and shake hands and build partnerships every day. Michael needs no introduction to most of you. A senior player in our market and in our region. Are you the young up-and-coming guy that Manav talked about?
No, he was the one he called experienced. So,
okay, right. Yeah. Michael just chalked up 25 years with Accor, had a small party at a nicely refurbished small boutique place you've got in Singapore.
Absolutely. It wasn't quite open at the time, but it was very enjoyable at Raffles Hotel. Now open. Yes.
Early access privileges. Yes. So your 25 years has seen amazing development, not only for Accor, but also in the region. We're going to talk this morning about luxury and the rise of lifestyle luxury, I think, which is particularly relevant to the Indonesian market. And indeed Bali. There is an opportunity to ask questions via the app that Thiksha and Manav mentioned. So if you have any questions, apparently those get rated. So the more popular ones rise to the top, and then we can ignore them or not if they're too tricky. So do you get the wobbles when you do this? Do you get fear at all?
No, you should always be still a little bit anxious when you're in front of a crowd, but I wouldn't say fear.
Puneet said fear is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe that's going a bit far. So let's set the scene and start talking about luxury. Accor in the last 5-6 years has really ramped up its presence in the luxury sector. You had the Sofitel brand, but 3 or 4 years ago, you stepped into Fairmont Raffles, and you really, in terms of weighting your overall portfolio, you've made a big step into luxury. You were an architect of that acquisition, that integration and transformation. What are your learnings on luxury from going through that process against a background of a more kind of mid-scale group?
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly a game-changing acquisition for Accor.
And you did it at the time when buying brands and companies wasn't fashionable. You were at the beginning of that curve.
Correct, and in fact, most of the analysts thought we overpaid, but there were a number of reasons why we didn't think so. One, it was very strategic for Accor, and it was something that led to a lot of change for the company that was very important. Two, there was a lot of synergies that we were able to achieve, but also we were very confident that we were going to be able to take some great brands and grow them significantly, which has proven to be the case. So it was a great transaction for us. What did I learn? Because I led the integration, which was a great process. So you talk about a bit of fear when I stepped into that process. It was a $2.7 billion acquisition that I had to make sure that was going to be successful. And that was, an integration is about breaking it down to the parts, and I certainly learned that at the time, which was fun. And that's why you never stop learning. I mean, that was about 4 years ago when we started that process, and I'd been with Accor for 20 years at that point in time, but you always learn, and that was a lot of fun. And what did I learn specifically about luxury as opposed to what was predominantly a mid-scale and economy company? What was really the big difference, there's a difference in talent that when you get to luxury, it's about detail, absolute focus on detail, and that detail needs to lead to guest recognition. That when you're in the mid-scale and economy, you're looking after your guests, but possibly not anticipating the needs of the guests quite to the same extent that you need to do with luxury, knowing exactly what to do and when, and nothing can replace experience in doing that. So for us, one of the keys to that integration was, in an integration, you use the term winning hearts and minds, because you need to win the hearts and minds of the team members of the company that you're acquiring. And while synergies were part of that transaction, what was every bit as important for us was retaining talent, because we needed to make sure that we would have the talent to run luxury hotels. And that was a key focus of the integration, and we were able to do that, so it was great.
And was the setting up of the luxury division, did that happen in parallel with that process, where you recognise that now we at head office level and now at regional level, right? You just appointed Mark Dardenne into the CEO Europe role for luxury. Yep. Was it a recognition that you needed a hub and a department within the group to really focus?
Yes, because again, one thing about an integration is, typically you have somewhere between 3 and 6 months prior to acquisition to do the planning.
You get some visibility, conditions precedent, all that fun stuff.
And depending on the type of acquisition, how much access you have to the teams and to information and what have you. And because it wasn't a public company, we had pretty good access. And because the two major shareholders they took a third cash and 2/3 in shares in Accor, so we actually had quite good access, which was great. And I was able to meet the teams. And so that was part of the process. Well, how are we going to do this? And so even prior to acquisition, we decided that we would set up a separate division. And a lot of things can sit on a common platform, obviously finance and even human resource type of systems. But when it comes to that talent, having that focus, what was important. And that's why we decided to set up a luxury division. And we were actually very lucky in that we were able to recruit a fellow by the name of Chris Cahill, who you mentioned, who had been with Fairmont Raffles for a very long time, but he had left about 4 years prior to join Las Vegas Sands, and he was their global head of operations outside of casinos. And
he's now one of your deputy CEOs.
Correct, but initially he was the head of the luxury division, and that was probably my happiest days in the integration process is when we hired Chris, because I knew that I was actually going to be able to hand over the integration process. Because for it to be successful, it needed to land, and we needed to have that separate luxury division. And that was about making sure that we had the right talent. And because it was, I remember very long time ago, we took over the Regent Hotel in Melbourne. That was actually in 1996. And the people that worked for the hotel didn't want to work for Accor. Because we were at that point, we were Novotel and Mercure and Ibis hotels in Australia, and we wouldn't know anything about luxury hotels and didn't want to work for us. And again, so that was the first time I understood that we had to really win the hearts and minds of a company, or in this case, a hotel that we took over. And here, where we were taking over 115 hotels spread around the world, and wanted to make sure that those people were engaged with Accor, motivated, not just to work with Accor, but to continue to do what they do and do it very well. So we set up that division, and it was crucial to the success of that integration.
Yeah, it really gives it focus. Let's talk now about your platform in Indonesia. 115 hotels, grown very solidly. What's been your experience of the company rolling out and increasing its presence in this market?
I suppose we took a decision a very long time ago. And actually, I see Mark Steinmeier here, and he was a key to our success in Indonesia. That we set up an office here, and we opened our first hotel here actually 25 years ago. And one of the keys was in 97, 98, when the Asian crisis came, a lot of companies left, and we stayed, and that was not an easy thing to do at the time. It was difficult. I mean, we had general managers that had to hide in the hotels, and so that was, so we've been committed to this country for a long time. And then from that, we built a great platform. And we have an office in Jakarta, and that office now has about 70 people in it. And increasingly, we've localized the team. And that's proven to be a tremendous success.
And you've had luxury, and really classic luxury in this market. Of course, this hotel open for 6 years, hosted APAC to kick off. What other? You got a Raffles in Jakarta,
Fairmont in Jakarta, Fairmont here in Sanur.
Yep. So good depth in if I can call that classic luxury.
Yes.
Is that the way you look at it as well?
Definitely, yes.
So if we're talking about a move towards kind of a lifestyle luxury component, where do you and you know, you've expanded that brand portfolio. Where do you see your brands being able to play in that lifestyle luxury segment?
Well, again, and we can come back to it, but you know, lifestyle is not just about luxury. There is lifestyle luxury, but there's lifestyle across the segments.
Let's break that down. What do we mean?
Yeah. Well, first, I suppose you have to. Lifestyle hotels has become a real buzzword, and it's now edging towards overused. And so, what is the definition?
Is it just scaled up boutique
of lifestyle? No, boutique is different again. Lifestyle is. It's about partly a cutting-edge hotel, partly, it's an element of design, it's an element of food and beverage, it's certainly an element of the type of service that you provide, and it's a use of space as well. And if you go back to the original lifestyle hotels, and probably one of the biggest difference about lifestyle, and particularly not so much luxury, but in all the other segments of lifestyle, is it's a fantastic use of GFA. Right, that you don't have a classic lobby, that the lobby is effectively, or the public space I should say, is effectively becomes food and beverage or activated space, right? And then rooms typically tend to be smaller, right? I'm not talking luxury, but every other segment, even upper upscale, the room product is smaller because what you're doing, what people are really looking for is experience. And they're going to spend less time in their room, and they're willing to take a smaller room because what they want is a great experience in the public areas of the hotel, which tends to be around food and great bars and activation. And you can do that at all segments. And that, for me, as I said, you need the design, but it's that activation of the public space that drives a lifestyle hotel. And I think it's a great opportunity. Pretty much everywhere, certainly in Indonesia. In Indonesia, probably less so in the luxury segment, because really there's only two markets in Indonesia that can support luxury, and that is Jakarta and Bali.
And that's from a rate perspective.
Correct.
We're struggling to kind of really yield up.
Correct, yep.
Because of a predominantly domestic market, is that outside of Bali?
Outside of Bali, exactly. Our business in Indonesia is 95% domestic. Right, and you go into all the other cities, and even with Surabaya, which is the second biggest, or Bandung, but into all the other cities, the market is mid-scale and economy. Right, so that doesn't mean that you can't provide a great lifestyle hotel, and that's why we have a number of other brands that will satisfy that need. But you're not going to put a luxury hotel into that because an owner's going to overcapitalize to do that, and we're not in the business with owners of telling them to spend money when they shouldn't.
So if we look at the Indonesian market, maybe the next place to invest in a sub-luxury sense is in a more accessible but experience-driven product.
Absolutely.
And so are we seeing, or are we about to see, lifestyle wellness is a key component, obviously, and luxury merge a little bit?
I mean, wellness is a little bit different, again, right, than what we would describe as lifestyle. And the great thing about Indonesia is, the design in this country is fantastic. So all our classic products of Ibis and Novotel and Mercure, some of the best ones that we have in the world are here in Indonesia, and that's because of the quality of design. So I think being able now to shift that design even to another level, but still at an accessible point in the segment, that we can create some really great lifestyle product in that mid-scale and if you will, upper economy sector.
And design as a key component, right? It's a differentiator in that.
But also activating, that tradition. Like this is a fantastic hotel, right? And there's some lifestyle elements of it. We have the beach club and the wellness elements. But you walk into what is a traditional lobby, which is lovely, and it's a wonderful arrival experience. But that's kind of the antithesis of what a lifestyle hotel represents today. And again, I don't think there's a better hotel anywhere that you can't enjoy like this. But I wouldn't define it as lifestyle. And and so if you go to and again, resorts are a little bit different typically than what you get in a corporate location, and it's more that city location that has driven lifestyle. And it's it's that activation. That's why even we started off with Ibis as our core economy product, and then we went to Ibis Styles, which is more design driven. But we've just introduced a brand called Tribe, and that's going to take it to another level again. And what's that about? It is absolutely about design, but it's that activation of the lobby and the restaurant and the bar and merging those together so that as you enter the hotel, you're entering a more active and more experiential, if you will, arrival.
Yeah. So before we dive into some of your brands and some of those differentiators, what are you hearing from your two stakeholder groups, your guests and your owners, that are shaping your thoughts about where to take the next wave of development in Indonesia?
Well, what owners are liking is the use of GFA, bringing that GFA down, right? And particularly in capital cities where you have expensive land, but even in secondary cities, cost of construction in land still tends to be relatively expensive. So that what we're trying to do with with that more accessible segments of lifestyle is maximize the GFA. And typically, not so much in the economy sector, but certainly in that upscale sector, the room size is coming down, right? And that's a benefit to an owner. So an owner's enjoying that. And then what's the guest liking? Well, the guest is liking the experience, that you are arriving into a hotel that has a buzz, that's more active, and having those different food and beverage options in some which they might not have stayed in the hotel before. And
so you've got to be alert to that feedback from guests and your owners, and that shapes where you take existing and future operations. So which of your so if we're saying lifestyle luxury at a keener GFA efficiency, probably a better staffing efficiency, maybe a tolerance for an A- location, so you don't need to be super premium, and a design lifestyle offering is slightly place makes, right? Is that fair?
I mean, I'm always a bit careful with that because, I mean, we're in the hotel business, and hotels still start with location, location, location. So never go away from that as a predeterminant of a truly successful hotel. Lifestyle, and again, in a capital city, if you're creating a placemaker, yes, you can bring people a little bit off center, all right? But in tier 2 cities in Indonesia, that's probably less the case, right? But so what you do want to be is the hotel of choice in that city. Yes. And with the right product, you can do that. That's what's more important in the tier 2 cities.
And I suppose that is relevant in faster growing destinations where the CBD today will look very different in 5-10 years' time.
Yep, usually.
It's more fluid than it might be elsewhere.
Yeah.
So which of your brands are really fit for purpose in that space?
Yeah. So for that more accessible, so we have Tribe, which is the entry level mid scale. Then we have Mama Shelter, and Mama Shelter is more food and beverage driven. So it's still small rooms, which is great. Those rooms could be 18 to 22 square meters. But you need at least probably about 500 square meters of food and beverage space, right? And so, the market needs to be big enough to support that. 25 hours is very much, that would be entry-level upscale, which is very much, it's partly design-driven, but there's only about 8 or 9 in the world at the moment. And they're actually...
I've been to the Berlin one.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
The bar upstairs is...
And each 25 hours...
Is that a brand standard? You've got to have a
wildlife
No.
That's a particularly unique location. But the thing about 25 hours is there's literally a story for each hotel. And part of lifestyle, well, certainly part of that brand is the storytelling. So it's matching lifestyle and a story, right? And that's what makes those very special. And again, I wouldn't... That's... Certainly a city like Surabaya or Bandung would support that type of brand, but starting to go into smaller cities, possibly not. And then the next level up that would be at the entry, let's call it entry up or upscale, is we acquired a company called SPE in the United States, and they have brands like Mondrian, SLS, and Delano. So Mondrian would be more the lower end of that spectrum, and that would probably play more to a Jakarta. And what we're doing with Mondrian, and it's actually getting real traction in Asia, is we are really maximizing that GFA at that upper end.
Yes.
Right? So taking some great food and beverage concepts, matching it with some fantastic designs. So like the ones in the United States were designed by Philippe Starck. I'm not saying it has to be a Starck design, but just to give you the image and where that brand has been positioned with some really active bars. You know, a lot of times either if not around rooftop, around pool bar, and some great restaurants. And for a city like Jakarta, we think that would work very well.
Yeah.
We're working on one in Singapore, Hong Kong, Seoul for that brand, and it's really.
I've seen some renderings for one
Yeah.
in Australia in a kind of Queensland location, and it looks looks really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. But again, and what we're finding is why owners are particularly attracted to that is coming back to what I was talking about in terms of that GFA. Because then as you move to more, say, SLS or Delano, you're starting to talk partly bigger rooms, but also more extensive food and beverage as well.
Right, right. And is branded resi a part of that mix?
It is, and again, certainly in the U.S., most of the SBE new developments are associated with branded residential, and it's proving very well, and definitely giving developers a premium on that residential. But also our classic brands, certainly Raffles, Fairmont, have had great success with branded residential and driving a premium. So that's not just the lifestyle. That's still classic luxury works very well for branded residential.
That's a key part of underpinning any luxury resort development,
No
many in Asia, actually, is the branded residential
and even
component.
capital cities as well. You know, mixed-use development. Because a bigger mixed use is, you know, the brand is giving a halo to the whole development. It could even be commercial, but certainly to the branded residential, sometimes even service residential. So you have that multiple layers of use of the brand, and it's very successful.
So do you see exciting growth for your group in that segment in Indonesia?
In branded residence?
Well, no, sorry, in luxury lifestyle. Just
Not luxury lifestyle, because again, as I was saying before, you know, I think luxury is limited to Bali and to Jakarta.
Bit narrow.
But in that more accessible lifestyle, no question, I see it as a great opportunity for Indonesia.
Going back to your acquisitions, a lot of your, you know, and Accor has an innovation lab, guys with glasses and lab coats.
Not quite, but
computers.
But we do have an innovation lab, yes.
Bright sparks. But one of the differentiators for you in your acquisitions is a lot of the originators of those brands are still in the businesses.
Yes,
you took a position in Banyan Tree, obviously, which is a shareholding, and you're not in a control position there. But that's consistent in that the custodians, a lot of those brands are still involved.
Yeah, certainly for Mama Shelter, 25 hours in SBE. For the first two, we took a minority stake with the ability to take a controlling stake and ultimately to buy the brand. And with SBE, it was 50-50 with the ability to buy the company. And exactly, the reason we did that is we wanted the founders to not just stay with the company, but to be motivated and because we want their IP. Because they are, you know, lifestyle is about that storytelling, and I suppose that goes back. That's probably the link to boutique. Great boutique also has a story, you know, a story that literally carries through from every element of the hotel. And these guys are really good at that, envisioning a hotel. And like Sam Nazarian, who's the CEO of SBE, you know, he was out in Asia the end of last year. You know, you can imagine, I've walked a lot of hotels in my life, and I see him, I guess, in a particular way. And he's probably someone who it was great to walk hotels, but he really saw them differently. And the way that he could envision public space and literally using every square meter was fantastic, right? And that's a skill. And so we want to make sure that we retain that skill.
Is there anyone else that you look at, not necessarily within your group, that you think's really done that nicely in the market? Someone that you really take your hat off and say that's well executed?
Well, in the early days, W did it well, and I'll never forget. I stayed at it was either the first or the second one in New York, and I checked in. I had arrived. I think I flew from Tokyo to New York City, and I arrived on a Friday night, and I had to fight my way into the front desk. The place was packed, and I went up to my room, and it was probably a 24 square meter room, and I remember saying to myself, I wonder if any of those people in the lobby will be there when I wake up in the morning. And not many of them were. But you know, that was, you know, they were innovators in activating those public spaces and minimizing the room and pulling that together. Now that's morphed more into luxury than lifestyle, and they've blown out that GFA. So they've kind of, it's still a great brand, but they've lost that particular essence of the brand, if you will.
Yeah.
But then, you know, that's where I think in our industry we've moved to you go big or you're going to stay small, and there's always going to be place for those innovative operators, that those startups, if you will, people that have a great vision. But then how big can you scale? Because once you get to a certain size, then you really need to go big. The issues of distribution start to come into play, talent, retention, all of that. So there's kind of those, to me, there's the two ends of the spectrums that will drive our industry. There will be the very big companies, but there will always be place for those individuals.
Small. I think W is a really interesting, if you're talking about lifestyle and merging with luxury, W is a great case study to watch the evolution of that product.
Yep.
Because a new one of those today is not at all where they started out, which is natural.
Yep, agreed. And it's still a great brand, but it is very different to what it started out.
That's evolved over time.
Yeah.
So can we get a bit more personal? Since I have you here and I want to pick your brain and your wealth of experience, what in your 25 years, what have you seen change the most within Accor and then also within our region in hospitality? If you pick one or two things.
Well, if I start with the second one, because that's kind of the easiest, and especially being here in Bali, when I way back when, Bali was a Australian European destination, right? That was the market. It's now it's still Australian, but because it's part of Asia Pacific, but it's now 85% Asia Pacific. And increasingly, the market within Asia Pacific is an Asia Pacific market, right? Like we talk about China as it's the biggest outbound market in the world, which is fantastic, but 85% of that outbound market stays in Asia Pacific. And so that's been the shift that has changed.
With low-cost airlines exploding.
Yeah. And then likewise the talent as well, making sure that as a result, we used to be, you'd bring in all these expats and they would run hotels and companies, and now that's not the case. The most valuable people you can have are people from the country that understand the country, that have the experience in the business. And that's been the shift, is the market itself, right? Which is great. I mean, the market's exploded, partly through the increase in wealth, low-cost carriers, as you mentioned. So it is just it is the best place to be in the world. It is in Asia Pacific, and I think we're all fortunate to be here, and that's changed. Accor, I mean, it's
vastly different.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, the co-founders were still running the company, and they were, unbelievable, great guys, and I thoroughly enjoyed working with them. And morphed into a truly international company. We used to be a very Franco Eurocentric company. We're now a very international company. We are the widest spread in terms of where our hotels are in terms of number, not so much number of countries, but not concentrated in any one particular country compared to some of our international competitors. We used to be very asset heavy. Last year we created Accor Invest, and we sold $10 billion worth of real estate into that company. We still have 35% of it. So we moved, and we also used to be, have half a Europe car. We used to have Compass Catering. We owned 38% of Club Med. We had independent restaurants. So we were a conglomerate, right? A company which is now Eden Red, which used to be called Accor Services, that we spun off in 2000. It's
a very interesting parallel to Sendant.
Yeah,
which becomes Wyndham in the US,
right? So we've been through that journey. And what's interesting is now we refer to what we call as Augmented Hospitality, where we do have some stakes in companies that we believe add to our ecosystem, but a very different approach to when we were a true conglomerate. And so now very much more focused on that. One being asset light, but also in the hotel and in the experience industry, right? And that's really where our focus is, and that's been a big change. It's been a phenomenal ride. It's been a lot of fun.
And the relaunch of your loyalty program just recently, really driving into that.
Correct. In fact, we announced that we're launching it at the end of the year. All Accor Live Limitless, which is exciting, and it is. That's about partly about all the new brands that we have, but then also extending that experience outside the hotels as well.
Can you give us a sense of the dollar investment that's gone into that project?
Yeah. Well, we announced in I think it was March, a 225 million euro investment into that.
Casual commitment.
Yeah. The stock market didn't quite appreciate it at the time, but they've learned to understand it a bit better since.
Not easy to push through with the analysts, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Does anyone have any questions through our app? We're running a little tight on time. Aha, we do.
Well, I don't know if you can read those.
What are you buying next?
Well, you know, being a public company, that's not sort of something that we could talk about. But yeah. I mean, certainly, you know, integration is a big part of what we're doing, and so we are always active. You know, prices have run up, so probably I think we did a lot of acquisition at the right time. But if the right opportunity comes along, we still have the firepower to acquire.
Yep. Do you see any room in Indonesia for some of your less central acquisitions? So, you know, your Augmented Hospitality, One Fine Stay, or those kind of projects?
Yeah, well certainly One Fine Stay, we have a little bit of product here in Bali. I think we can do some more of that, definitely. Probably not in the rest of in Indonesia. We have another, you know, Jean-Paul, which is a digital concierge. We actually have the Asia Pacific headquarters is in Singapore for that business, and I do think we'll bring that to Indonesia, definitely.
Okay. Top ranking question is a harder one because they're listed as well. The Banyan Tree investment has been relatively quiet, and I know they've been reshaping some of their portfolio because we've worked with them on some asset sell downs, and they're obviously have a significant real estate portfolio, so they're going through a reshaping. Where do you see that going next?
Yeah, I mean that's different to most of our other acquisitions. You know, we took a 5% stake in Banyan Tree.
To stop IHG buying them?
No.
Yes.
No. And really what we have, that deal is about us having co-development rights, excluding China and Thailand, so that we can develop the brand. And we're doing that. But when it comes to, you know, luxury hotels, you know, it takes, you know, a brand like Banyan Tree, it takes 5 years in gestation. So you will start to see Accor manage Banyan Trees in about another couple of years. So we're definitely continuing to pursue that. They're great brands, as is Anxiety as well. And you know, we have a few that we'll be announcing shortly, and we'll definitely continue to pursue the brands. These are fantastic brands.
And fits so nicely into your brand stack,
No
in
question.
that it's clearly a resort, wellness-driven, and doesn't replicate.
Correct. And we also have the right to use the Banyan Tree spas in our other hotels, and we'll be introducing a few of those as well. Yeah.
Last question, I think. What's your Mount Everest, Michael?
My Mount Everest, wow. Probably China. Yeah, because China is, you know, we have 350 hotels.
Jeez, you're aiming big, right?
Yeah, we have 350 hotels there now, and it is the fastest growing hospitality market in the world. It's incredibly competitive because particularly now, you know, the competition is the domestic players, Jingjiang, Huazhu, BTG. And you know, to be successful there requires a lot of investment. The technology is very different. And being successful in China is incredibly important to Accor, and it's, as I said, very competitive. So I would suggest that would be my Everest at the moment, definitely.
Next 5-year plan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, to use someone else's tagline, I think you can tell I'm a fan. Michael, thanks for sharing. Thanks for giving us the benefit of your insight. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.